And I'm just going to introduce item 10. Okay, this is the Auckland Council Group, Iki Panuku, Tāteki, Auckland Unlimited, Watercare, Port of Auckland quarterly performance reports. Again, Michael and Karuna, we've read it, but we'd like you to say, just to provide a little quick high performance thing before we get into questions, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've definitely got a quorum. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 12. Okay. Off you go, thanks. Checking to see I had a quorum.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. So as the Mayor has mentioned, this paper presents the Auckland Council Group Quarterly Performance Report for the first quarter of this financial year. Included with the overall report is the usual detail on the Auckland Council entity, but also quarterly reports from each of the substantive CCOs, except Auckland Transport, where they presented their quarterly report to the Transport Resilience and Infrastructure Committee on the 7th of November. So normally these CCO reports would come through to the CCO Direction and Oversight Committee, but the December meeting of this committee has been cancelled. So I will take the paper and associated reports as read and just highlight a few key headlines around the group's performance. Just before I do this, I just want to briefly mention that this first quarter report has been changed with the intent of having a shorter, more concise report reflecting our ongoing commitment within Council to improve performance reporting. So lower number of pages, just one report, and we've introduced some more visual design elements. We have removed the strategic focus areas and replaced these with the critical priorities identified for each investment area as outlined in the long-term plan, acknowledging though, of course, that there's always room for improvement. Apologies for that. So group capital investment for the quarter was $881 million, which represented 89% delivery against our LTP budget. The key driver of the slower start to the year was the uncertainty around government funding towards our planned transport program. Now that clarity on this has been received and you've made decisions around the transport program in response, Auckland Transport can proceed with delivery. At the end of the quarter, group net debt was around $12.5 billion, a $228 million increase from the June year end as we borrow to invest in new and improved assets for the city. This is budgeted to increase to $14 billion by the end of the financial year and annualised represents a debt to revenue ratio of 253%. The Council continues to maintain its strong credit ratings of AA from S&P Global and AA2 from Moody's. Onto our operating performance. At the end of the quarter, the group was sitting at $72 million favourable to budget. This was due to higher than expected revenue and reduced spend. Operating spend was $59 million below budget, mainly due to lower than planned repairs and maintenance expenditure. Direct revenue of $756 million was $13 million higher than budget, and this was due to a combination of factors such as high consenting activity and water usage. With the total group workforce stood at 11,510 full-time equivalents. So this was a slight lift on the number at the end of June, with the increase led by frontline staff, such as librarians, animal shelter staff, staff for the Transport Contact Centre, and public transport officers to enhance public transport network security. For the Council parent and group shared services, the number of FTEs sat at 6,510, around 240 below the budgeted level of 6,750. Moving on to our non-financial performance. Out of the 21 measures, 17 have been achieved. Those not achieved, shown in red up there, relate to building consent processing times, although as Phil mentioned, they have increased on the previous year. the amount of high-risk alcohol premises visited is behind where we plan to be by this time of the year. This is because staff are focusing on implementation of the new local alcohol policy, and they will be prioritising proactive inspections again later in the year. So that's for the Auckland Council entity performance measures. Given for the CCOs included in this item, Eke Panuku on track for all statement of intent performance measures to be met by year end. Tātaki Auckland Unlimited reported 9 of its KPIs as met or on track to be met, with the remaining 3 not reported this quarter. Of the 25 measures tracked for water care, 20 we met and 5 were not. Those not met related to attendance at sewerage overflows, leakage performance, and input to resource consents. All of the performance targets for Port of Auckland are on track, with the exception of their capital program, which was slower than budgeted. And at that point, I hand it back to you for questions, Mayor Brown. We have got some staff here in person and online. Thank you.
Is that it? You're not saying anything? What are you two come along for then? Okay, Councillor Newman's got a question for you.
Oh, well, my question's for water care. Are they online? Okay, well, all right. Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to have a conversation about paragraph 41 in the report. Development controls have been put in place in areas where treatment plants are reaching capacity. Total water storage is low target. You know, that first sentence with respect to capacity, and follows on from the inquiry that where they are not meeting their target in terms of input for resource consent applications. That's interesting. So you're not able to talk to those matters, obviously, but we should be, as a region, talking about this matter most definitely, given that what we're talking about is development controls, which are a handbrake at a time when we are trying to enable the targets that the government set with respect to housing and etc. So when can we talk about that?
Through the chair, we can either ask for that water care to address those issues in a deep dive session early in the new year through the CCO committee, or it might be relevant through the Transport Resilience and Infrastructure Committee. I'll talk to you offline, and I think we'll scope up exactly what we're asking for water care to come back and have that discussion about, and we'll just put that on the agenda for the appropriate committee early in the new year.
And I guess if you could take this question and come back to me, I'm interested to know the gap between the number of residential dwellings that are being consented and said dwellings that are constructed within, say, 12 months, 2 years of consent being issued. I'm seeing an awful lot of product being built which is not being sold. I see a really substantial supply of housing out there that nobody wants to pay for. Well, nobody wants to buy it at an agreed price. So there's something going on there whereby we are celebrating consented building activity for things that don't seem to actually reach the market price for people to purchase and move in. You won't have that answer today, but I'm interested in some research on that. If you can provide it back in writing in a memo to me, I'd be very grateful.
Yeah, we'll look to do that. Thank you, Councillor Newman.
No other questions? I'm going to ask about Eke Panuku and that wretched bridge. It doesn't seem to have followed anything remotely like a budget. And how does that affect things? I mean, it only cost $2 million to build it, and then it was going to be $7 million to fix it. Now it's $12 million to fix it, and it doesn't look like it's fixed yet. And surely, I mean, we can't have those sorts of things that have no effect or impact. If it's got no impact, then we can't have any accuracy anywhere. So, eh? Yeah, I think I'm just talking about the budgeting impact on it. So, what have you heard there?
Ike Panuku's been sending regular updates on that project to all of the councillors. I believe it's when they begun the repairs and sort of effectively pulling the bridge apart, that there was other items that needed repairing, and replacing, and so the budget increased accordingly. Although the work, I think, is still being done within the time frame that was envisaged, but the budget did increase as more defects in the bridge were discovered when repairs began.
I'm not sure if I understood that, but I mean, they seem to be able to dramatically increase the cost of doing something or other, and it doesn't seem to be a problem somehow or other. Whereas we're dramatically increasing the number of houses that we're going to category 3, and there's going to definitely be a problem. So how does that happen? Have they just got some sort of limitless thing that they can pile into, which seems to be a good reason of dragging them in, because we'll drag in all this money we can spend as well?
The short answer to that is that Ike Panuku, like all of the CCOs, are given a capital projects budget for the year, and if the budget in one of those projects is more than what they forecast, then they've got to reprioritise that from other projects that we've funded them to do, and they've got to manage their program of projects within the budget that you give them.
Yeah, well, I expect that's how you do it. But I mean, if you've got one that's clearly in the public eye as being a sudden dramatic increase over what had been initially it should have some sort of response in the report back. Not that everything, if you read this, everything's wonderful, but somehow or other, the $7 million is going to be found to the difference between one and the other. So what aren't they doing?
We can get them to report that back to you, and we'll circulate some information to all the governing body members about how they've had to reprioritise their capital program.
These reports are important, but we tend to gloss over them. But the idea of the things below budget due to timing differences and all, it's kind of waffle. If there's something that people know about, we should be able to be told about it. I get asked about it every day. How can you suddenly pay for that? I don't know. No other questions?
I was just going to ask where the CCOs are, because I had a question for Panuku as well, but why aren't they here?
So, as we do in the CCO Direction and Oversight Committee, the CCOs don't attend for the quarterly report updates, but we have them on a regular cycle of coming in for deep dive sessions on particular issues and their performance discussion. And this is simply a product of the CCO committee being cancelled in December because of the reshuffle of committees to allow the governing body decision making. No.
It was not Councillor Henderson's fault. He helped everyone because everything had to move for governing body, which was your fault. Yeah.
I'm not.
So you're saying that even if it was the other one, they wouldn't be here?
I'm not going to
Must
say
have been a
it's
tanny
anybody's
far, I
fault. But the short story is that there's more in-depth performance discussions each month at the CCO doc, and so we don't have every CCO coming in for their quarterly performance discussions. If there are questions, we can take them back and get them answers for you. Otherwise, when they're programmed to come into the CCO committee, we can have those discussions there.
Okay. Councillor Walker's rescued things by showing interest in this to join me in the questioning section.
Really just following your lead, Mr Mayor, and it goes to questions of the CCOs and the matter of accountability and transparency. And I cannot help but recall a meeting that I attended where there was a proposition put up by the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr Lee, was it the Save the Dockyard Tram group? Mike's busy. But there was a proposition for an alternative bridge, and my recollection is that it was cheaper. This is a completely new bridge than the repairs to the bridge that they're putting up, and this bridge would have enabled the movement of a tram across.
It was well over 40 million, and
So,
it was well over 40 million, and the council said no. We said no.
Okay, well,
okay.
I've just been reminded that we wandered off course from questions to debate and entertainment almost, actually, but fair enough.
It's
Okay, it
Christmas
appears
coming
as though more actual questions, so you three can retire and relaxed. And we'll put the last bit down to debate, but I got the point. And in fact, there were people who enjoyed the ferry so much they said they don't want to catch the bridge anymore. So there you go. Any debate on this? Beg your pardon? There you are. Moved and seconded, debating. Anyone interested? Councillor Turner.
Just sitting here as a tradie, those figures that you just quoted, how do we, the only thing I don't hear in this place is the words, why so much? We should be asking that more and more and more. That's where the money's going. Thank you.
I think that was reason 364 for bringing Eke Panuku back in, because we can't ask why it's so much at the moment, but there you are. Okay, any further debate on this one? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour of receiving that report, please say aye. To the contrary, thank you very much. That's received. We're now going to